Thank you very much to Kostas, to Aris, and to all for allowing me to join virtually in the meantime. Firstly, also, I see it's the 20-year anniversary of the Congress, so congratulations to everybody in Greece. I have seen that Joao has very eloquently already put quality of care at the center of the discussion today. So I just want to emphasize that we really have a responsibility to our patients, to our citizens, that we provide care and provide access and reimbursement to only clinically and cost-effectiveness treatments. And that's where HTA comes in. And thanks to Panas and Aris before me, I will not get into the details really of what health technology assessment is or its the regulation. What I will say a little bit about is the work we are doing at WHO broadly, but mostly focused on the project that we are now working on in collaboration with the Ministry of Health of Greece through the funding and a collaboration with the Commission as well. So WHO really came into the world of HTA in some ways a little bit late. It was only through a resolution, the World Health Assembly Resolution 67.23, that came into adopt and effect in 2014, that really gave the mandate to WHO to start working with countries actively to ensure that health interventions and technology assessment really are the basis for universal health coverage or reimbursement decisions in countries, so that only treatments that have been proved to be effective and cost effective are then reimbursed by the public purse to ensure that the right kind of care is being provided to the people. And as a response to that adoption of the resolution, WHO set out a global survey, which is a global survey on HTA and HBV, which is the health benefit package. First in 2015, initially it was only on health technology assessment, looking at different indicators across all the members of the WHO. This is globally, so 194, and different details and indicators for health technology assessment in regions. And then in the most recent iteration, which is also now a little bit outdated, from 2020 and 2021, health benefit package and the links between health technology assessment and unfortunately sometimes the lack of links between health benefit packages was also undertaken. And you could find information across all countries that participated in the survey and the most recent details through a dashboard on our website. And you can look at detailed results for each country, but also do comparisons across countries and see where Greece sits in. But that said, as I say, it is a little bit outdated and we are looking ahead. And as Iris pointed out, we have very closely monitored the regulation from the EU. So for EU countries, from January 2025 on the 12th, very soon now, the regulation will come into effect, which means that Greece, amongst others, will have to align their national processes to that of the Commission to allow for the two main areas the regulation looks at, which is joint clinical assessments as well as joint scientific advice, as Aris pointed out, but there are also areas of voluntary collaboration around value assessment, horizon scanning, and others. So what does that mean? What are we working with and our project? So our project, Strengthening the National Health Technology Assessment Framework for Greece, really works to build capacity in the country, institutionalize and implement the regulation. And we have been given a scope, so we're working around that. We do know what we are working with. We have our assessment from 2020, 2021, but as it was a bit outdated, we can see that the HTA process launched in 2018 for pharmaceutical products, but also wanted to include medical devices since 2022, though implementation is yet to fully happen. We have our deadline looming weeks ahead now in January for the regulation. And so we really wanted to, thanks to the technical support instrument from DG Reform through the Commission, really ensure that Athens and Greece are ready for this change and will be fully aligned with the processes required from them. And that gives us to our main two aims. I mean, our first aim is really to make sure the alignment with the regulation that comes into effect next year. But really, our broader hope is to also use this as a momentum and really do the appropriate changes and reforms that the health system and the HTA landscape needs in Greece, so that it's a sustainable and up-to-date system that really ensures appropriate access and reimbursement to the correct technologies that are coming our way. And how are we planning to do this? So we have sort of a governance structure. As you can see, we have a high-level steering committee with high-level representatives from the ministry, from the National Organization for Healthcare Services Provision, from the National Organization for Medicines, from the Commission from DG Reform. And we really have 3 levels of WHO working on this. You have Joao there with you from the Athens office, but also from the regional office in Copenhagen in Europe. We have a team who are working very closely with the Athens office, as well as oversight and guidance and advice from our headquarter colleagues in Geneva. On a day-to-day basis, we meet every 2 weeks. We have the staff from all 3 organizations, as well as experts in the field. And I'll go into a little bit about the scientific advisory group and stakeholder group, as you have met some of them already today. So we really have the experts on board, international experts in the field. Panos and Kostas are with you right now, and I hope many others as well. But you can see Andrew Briggs from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Sotiris from University College London, Panos, of course, with you there from LSE, Kostas from the University of West Attica, Evie Germany from University of Glasgow, and Elias also from LSE, though also based partly in Athens. We are really working with them at every stage of the project to ensure that we have the right advice and expertise working to ensure that we develop the methods and processes in line with the regulation, but really use the opportunity to rehaul the landscape to make it fit for purpose and up to date. And the other group is the stakeholder group, which really is representations from all forms of stakeholders in Greece, but also our international experts, as well as delegates from the Commission, the OECD, and academics that are based both in Athens, but also internationally. And we will be bringing them on board to hearing what all stakeholders have to say. Our first stakeholder workshop is next week, and we are very much looking forward to hearing the feedback and comments on our first piece of work that we have done. And I'll tell you a little bit about our work as we go ahead. So we started, as Ara said, and Joao, we have 18 months ahead. We've now in the first phase in completing the situation analysis, which was really an in-depth analysis, starting with desk research and literature, but then complementing it with in-depth interviews with the relevant stakeholders to really make sure that we are not only relying on what the literature and publications say, but we can actually fill holes through actually what is happening in practice and understand, really get a deep understanding of what the current state of play is as a baseline to move ahead. We've also in parallel done a full thorough review of the regulation and what it actually means for Greece and all other EU countries, but in particular where we land with the current situation from the situation analysis in Greece to where we need to be. There are 3 areas that Greece will have to focus on in terms of the joint clinical assessment, and they have an opportunity really to comment and contribute, which was initially at the scoping to ensure that the relevant questions also from the perspective of Greece are asked and are taken into consideration in the joint report, but also be able to review the joint report and provide feedback and comments to ensure that the final assessment reflects the views and wishes of Greece. And of course, the third main area of contribution really, and the hope is to be the ones in the coming years to jointly be developing the assessment report, where you can be the first or the second assessor, where the national processes are so aligned that as part of the EU process, Greece's HTA body can also be the ones participating in the development of the joint clinical assessment. And that is also similarly for the joint scientific advice. Greece will have the opportunity to be at the table and ask the right questions and the parameters that Greece would need to and have those discussions with industry jointly with the European Medicines Agency and the other HTA agencies from the region to make sure their voice is heard. So I think this really gives a lot of power to the countries to really be at the table and actually asking for what they really need from the manufacturers. So that is the first part of our work, and we will be presenting the situation analysis next week, as I said. So I didn't want to share or ruin the thunder of next week, but I hope many of you will be able to attend, and I'm sure we will be sharing findings anyway after that for the wider stakeholder groups. So you will be hearing more on that. Then this will bring us to the next phase of work. Once we know what the gaps are between the current status of HTA in Greece and to where we need to be with the regulation, we will actually start the work, which is both the development of a new methods guide, but also the development of new processes. And this means not only focusing on just the joint clinical reports or the scientific advice, which is part of the regulation, but also the voluntary parts, which are the value assessments, the health economic elements that need to be also aligned so that the national process is ready to adopt the new, the clinical evidence as well in their negotiation and pricing and reimbursement decisions. And once we have that, we will also throughout provide capacity building training and support through the scientific advisory group, as well as experts and agencies through peer learning, where we are setting up workshops to train and really sustainable options so that the HTA bodies in Greece can actually take on the work going forward very actively themselves. With the new guidance developed, we will have a second stakeholder workshop to also share with the wider community, get input and feedback, and then use that new updated guidance, processes and methods to do a pilot where we test out the guidance in practice and see how it works for an assessment in Greece, and then maybe have to fine tune based on our learnings and the pilot to make the final guidance about the methods and process guides, as well as maybe plan a second pilot in a different area. As Aris pointed out, we start with ATMPs, certain oncology drugs, but then devices, etc., come into play very soon. So we may want to think broader as well. And this is just really a bit more detailed plan, maybe a bit more detail than you need, but just so you know, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we are really at the first stage. We are at month 4 now, where we've completed the needs assessment and the situation, and we are now hoping to share that information broadly with stakeholders. We will, after the workshop next week, we will take the input and feedback from that, incorporate into the draft reports, and then provide those to stakeholders as well in early January to get more input and consultation before we finalize and then move ahead with the next stage of the development of the methods and processes. We will also see where to best institutionalize this and how it sits in the landscape and how it should be sitting going forward in terms of an HTA unit. And that's really it. I want to thank everybody for their time, and I hand it back to Kostas.
Tarang, on behalf of roughly 200 people currently in the room, all ears to hear these fascinating developments. We would really like to thank you for this presentation and for all your efforts in organizing this, and we're all looking forward for the meeting on the 13th. I don't know if Panos or Aris want to do a brief comment. Pano? Go first.
Okay, thank you, Tarang. So I'll just speak in English so you can also understand what I'm commenting to.
Thank you.
So I just want to clarify in terms of the project's work packages. In essence, at this point in time, we're doing the situation analysis, which is to understand the misalignments of the existing landscape and the existing processes and framework in Greece, the requirements of the new HTA regulation. Following that, we will do the core stage of the project, which is the development of the national framework, including processes and guidance. It will be a very, let's say, core booklet. It will be open access, as other HTA agencies are using. So there will be a transparent published document where all the marketing authorization holders and companies interested in submitting to the HTA, not organization, but let's say committee to begin with, they will know exactly which are the stages and which are the relevant requirements, evidential requirements, and timelines. Beyond that, we will apply the guidance and the new process for a new real world case study which corresponds to one ATMP or one new oncological drug that will enter through the central approval of EMA in 2025. So there will be an actual practical pilot of the methodology with a real-world case study. And other than that, I want also to clarify that we have formed a consortium of 3 European HTA agencies which will be responsible also for advising and providing technical expertise in terms of the changes we want to implement. And these 3 HTA agencies are from France, Portugal, and Italy. So we have decided that these are the most relevant role models for our country and for the project, and therefore this will be a consortium of decision makers, including assessors from the other countries, where we'll have exchange of opinions, including field trips from members of our HTA committee and other representatives from Ministry of Health and NEOP to these countries, back and forth. I think we'll have 2 series of field trips, so that was another point I wanted to add. Thank you very much, Tarang.
Fantastic.
Thank you,
Panos?
Sure. Tarang, good to see you again. A few points. First of all, this is a critical development for the healthcare system. In as much as it is a golden opportunity to implement changes. We're talking about health technology assessment for drugs, ATMPs obviously, but also medical technologies in general. So devices, codependent technologies, digital technologies, and so on. Why is this a golden opportunity? Because it will provide benchmarks for our much valued HTA committee members and the new recruits that will come. My good friend, the Secretary General, did not mention whether it's going to be a committee or an organization. He left that either or. It's irrelevant, okay? It is irrelevant. But what is important is to understand what is our model of evaluating technologies in this country. Because HTA is unique to each country's circumstances. Okay, so evidence assessment is something very straightforward. Because you take the data and you say, well, this is the clinical benefit, this is how the clinical benefit was derived, it was a randomized controlled trial or a single-arm study, this is the clinical endpoint or a surrogate endpoint used, etc., etc. And there's a sort of benchmark there. The evidence interpretation is something different. So beyond what the HTA are, and that falls, Mr. Secretary General, on our responsibility as a member state, as a country. So that's basically a golden opportunity to basically make assumptions about what we want. So evidence interpretation means also how do we deal with cost effectiveness? How do we deal with uncertainties? How do we deal with restrictions? I mentioned a few examples earlier on. And all of these things need to be implemented. Hence, alignment is only the first step. Otherwise, we're going to end up next year and the year after that to be in the same room, well, or some similar room anyway, discussing about clawbacks. So, evidence assessment, evidence interpretation, and appraisal. And the appraisal is different. And that's why, because of the criteria you implement, and then the clinical and prescribing guidance. If we don't undertake these steps going forward, and we have a cushion, a golden opportunity of 2.5 years up until the next general election, I hope that this will be the case, to take serious steps in that direction. That's what I want to say. So, critical development. Much remains to be done, not from the project itself, but also from the efforts of the authorities. And I think both the negotiation committee and the HTA committee have a pivotal role to play. Members, have a pivotal role to play in that context. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pano, and thank you very much to Tarang and Joao for introducing us to this effort. It's, as Pano said, a golden opportunity and the start of quite a fascinating effort to bestow the country with a process that will be up to date, to speed, and to context with the European environment. I would like to thank you both on this.